Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas. Today I have returning guest Oscar Garza. Prior, Oscar was here for a Spanish language episode about a year ago about Journey Sports. Oscar is founder of Journey Sports and current president of the Mexican Insurtech Association and current vice president of the, what's the Latin American one?
Yeah, it's the Pan American Insurtech Association
Pan American
Alliance.
Insurtech Alliance. Okay, perfect. So basically, so you run an insurtech in Mexico and a really interesting side, and then you're currently running the Mexican Association.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
correct.
okay,
So I have those two roles, and I'm also collaborating in other Insurtech projects because of all the people I know and all the tech that I get to know within these years of being in this amazing industry.
okay, awesome. So thank you for joining me today. And so the Journey Sports. It's been a long time. You've been running it for like 9 years.
No,
What is Journey Sports?
yeah, so I've been running for 4 years actually. We began on March 2020. Quite a bad year to start, but well, you do not choose your own luck. But well, so Journey Sport is an MGA specialized on sport insurance. Our main product line is accident insurance for athletes. Now, this product might sound a little bit weird in the US because almost everyone has health insurance, but in Mexico, things are quite different than in the US. Only 4% of the Mexican population has health insurance from the private sector. Like 50% of them have from the public sector, but public medicine is quite slow and, a lot of things are not covered. So the fact of the matter is that a lot of athletes do not have any kind of coverage, and if they get injured while doing, I don't know, soccer, boxing, football, whatever they like to do, well, they are to their own luck, and normally they get their families in debt in order to get them out of their injury, which is quite an unfortunate thing. Injuries are the main major cause for sport abandonment worldwide, but in Mexico more so. And the product is quite like a micro insurance in itself. It's quite cheap. So for somebody that plays soccer, that's almost a national sport in Mexico, as you can imagine. We charge from $30 a year. So not expensive at all. Almost every Mexican family can afford it. And we have insured 125,000 athletes up to this point. So quite some experience.
That's incredible growth. When we chatted last year, you were insuring about 76,000 athletes.
Yeah,
So it's doubled in the last year.
yeah. We've been growing like crazy. We used to be partnered with Zurich for this product, but we now are partnered with GNP, which is the major carrier for the Mexican market, the biggest one. And this has allowed us to grow a lot. Now we have a lot of contracts with the federal government, with Mexican federal government. And we also have the biggest universities in the country. We have a lot of individual athletes. And now we are innovating and getting into new product lines, but always related to sports. We are getting into equine insurance for, sport related horses like charreria, which is a national sport here in Mexico, but also jumping, dressing, quarter mile, that kind of things which don't have like proper coverage in Mexico. We're also getting into sport vehicles. So, like race cars, racing motorcycles, um, gliders, that kind of things. And it's a huge market, really diverse, and really needs a lot of specific knowledge on what you are building and how you present these opportunities to the carriers as an MGA, how you acquire the capacity for operating the business. But it's a huge blue ocean, and I think that's a really interesting thing about Mexico and Latin America as a general thing. A lot of people do not have anything, so whatever you build will be almost the first thing to exist. And if you are able to reach them and to make something compelling, people are buying, which is really interesting from the market.
So most Latin Americans in Latin America, but most people
Yeah.
in Latin America generally don't have insurance of most of the types that here in the States are just mandatory and normal.
Well, let's get into a little game
Mhm.
here. How many cars out of 10, how many cars do you believe are insured in Mexico in average?
Okay, so here in the States, for liability, probably 9 out of 10, even though 10 out of 10 are supposed to. Uh, I'm guessing that in Mexico we're talking 3 out of 10.
Well, that's a really good guess because it's 3 out of 10. 30% of
Okay.
our cars are insured. 4% of our people have private health insurance. The biggest insurance in Mexico, and quite weirdly, is life insurance, but it's because of some regulation, because we call it life credit. So in order for you to get a credit, they need to get you a life insurance that doesn't really cover the person getting the credit, covers more like the institution that gives the credit to the person.
Okay, so
But
it's not to
the,
protect my family, it's to protect the
yeah,
bank if I die
it's
before I
to
pay
protect the
them.
bank, yeah.
Okay.
So 25% of Mexicans have that kind of thing, but that's because it's related to credit. And that's the biggest penetration of any kind of insurance. The last encuesta, the last
Survey.
survey, the last survey that was published is that only 3 out of 10 Mexicans have had in any point of their life any kind of insurance whatsoever. So yeah, 70% of the population have never had anything. And
So
yeah,
i- is it a cultural thing? Is it a lack of availability? Is it a cost thing? What's the
yeah.
main reason that we have such large on insurance?
Well, as anything in life is quite a diverse array of different things. But what I believe it's the main thing is that carriers really like to say that it's a cultural thing, but it's really not. Like people do what they understand and what they can to transfer risk in the ways they can. Normally, they operate in a mutualistic kind of way with their own families. But I do believe that it's a lack of proper products for the needs that the average Mexican has. So, 80% of the population in Mexico makes $800 a month or less. It's 80% of the population. Now, if you want to push health insurance that's worth $5,000 to one of those families, well, of course, it just cannot be paid. It's an impossibility. That's almost the annual salary of was one of the producers. So traditional carriers and agents have focused on the really high tier of the population that has the most amount of money because higher commissions, bigger sales, bigger products, and Mexico is quite a big country. We had 130 million people, so even though we had 80% of the population living with those means, with those salaries, well, we do have a really plush class of kind of all money-esque, old money-esque kind of people that they have traditionally had all the focus for producing and enabling and distributing all the products. Now that we insurtechs come along, we cannot really compete with that market because that market is already well served and it's almost in everybody that wants insurance already has one in that class. But we are focusing on the rest of the people. How can we do embedded insurance, micro insurance? How can we get into massive collective kind of insurance with easier administration through platforms, through APIs, through that kind of thing? So this new like insurtech wave in Latin America has really focused on democratizing access to insurance, on creating different kinds of products that are relevant to the consumer. If you make $800 a month and if somebody steals your phone, well, that's kind of a tragedy. It's really hurtful. I know for an American, if you lose 300, $400 phones, it's, well, kind of irrelevant. You just buy another and that's it. But in Mexico, without access to credit or to fair credit, because there's a lot of abuses within the credit sector in Mexico, then people really just end up with a phone, and that is a severe limitation to their communication capability. And that's just a small product. The car insurance, like the vehicle insurance products, are normally focused on new cars, newer cars. Well, those 70% of uninsured cars normally are classified or deemed as uninsurable by traditional carriers. So they're not really uninsurable, but they cannot be fixed through the traditional mechanic network, so they avoid to get into that. Now, new insurtechs are innovating in the business and the claims model in order to make it more, we call it compensatory. So instead of actually taking the car to the mechanic to fix it, you just give a pre-accord, like almost parametric sum to the person, and they fix their car the way they can. But in order to get to those cars, you need different ways of solving claims, of distributing, of talking to people, customer service and these kind of things. And every single product line that you can see in Latin America has had a new thinking, a new way of viewing it, to not put the blame on the consumer, which, to be sincere, is never the consumer's fault. I mean, sometimes it is, but it's never the consumer's fault. Normally, the thing is that there's not a correct product and distribution network with proper service that makes products unappealing to consumers.
So sounds like the new way of thinking. Basically, it's all around how do we serve this 105 million people in Mexico, making less, 800 or bucks or less a year. Uh, excuse me, a month, 800 bucks a month. Uh, in a way that meets them where they're at,
Exactly.
distributed in an efficient and cost effective way, providing coverages at the level needed for
Yeah, as
right.
little needed.
So a lot of microinsurance, a lot of parametric. Uh,
Yeah, parametric
mhm.
micro APIs, platform enabled to handle huge numbers of people, and yeah, of course, with a reduced commission setting in order to make it more affordable for the market. Yeah, so that's a lot of what's happening not only in Mexico but also in Central America. Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, in Colombia, in Ecuador, Peru, even Chile. I mean, all these countries do have a lot of different things. It's not like the same country. Naturally, they're different peoples, but culturally speaking, and in the needs of the people speaking, everyone is almost the same. So the same solution that you create in Mexico to insure soccer players for a small town that pay 30, 60 bucks a month, sorry, a year for their coverage, it's applicable for Brazil. So now this is really interesting for insurtechs and people wanting to enter this market, because it stops being a 130 million people market in Mexico, a 40 million market in Colombia, 20 million market in Chile. It becomes a 600 million market for the whole region
So now we're
that have
talking
all,
almost twice as many people as in the U.S.
yeah, twice as many people as in the US, and normally they can be achieved by the same things. The carriers are willing to make products and business in this way, so really collaborative. Uh, we have, kind of lemonade-esque companies in the region, but they haven't been the biggest success. The biggest success has come from collaboration with incumbents, with new players, with insurtechs. So this collaboration is enabling a lot of new penetration. Just to give you an example, the growth of the insurance sector in Mexico has been single digits for like 30 or 40 years. I mean, I've been in this growth for 30 years, and it since before I was born, it's only like single digit growth. now with digital insurance, it's growing at double digits, which is a first time in so many years. Yeah, because people are, able to buy this particular, electrodomestic insurance while they're shopping at their convenience store. And you say, well, is that digital? Well, of course, because the platform that enables that transaction and the levels that underwriting and that the distribution of the policies and everything is done through digital means. So these kind of things are the things that are pushing the market forward.
Okay. The appliances is the word in English for
Yeah,
electrodoméstico.
appliance.
It
Yeah,
took me a second
sorry.
to think of. So
Oh, I really excuse for the audience for I'm translating in my head as I go, so I'm sorry.
no worries, no worries. So basically, the thinking is when you're creating products for this market is more like what are the things that a Latin American household needs that are for them compared to their income, very significant purchases that maybe in other parts of or that maybe in other parts of the world, like the States, are not as significant compared to so things like appliances. Like here in the States, yeah, we might
Yeah.
try to sell you a warranty on your new washer or your new refrigerator, but it's not the end of the world if something were to happen to it compared to
Yeah, it's a mere inconvenience. Yeah. Here, if the washer breaks, well, it can be quite awful for the woman in the family or for the children. This kind of becomes a huge loss of time because they cannot just go to the washer shop and just get the clothes there. Now they need to do this by hand, and that takes time, and this can really impede the generation capacity of a lower income family in Mexico. But it's not only, the fact that it breaks, but also the fact that it gets stolen, and I understand that security and safety in the US is one thing, but there's a lot of small tier crime going on in lower income places in Mexico, as well as in the US. People get mugged all the time in New York or in, I don't know, Los Angeles and these places. But if they get mugged for their phone in the US, well, an inconvenience. If they get mugged for the phone here, well, that's, really debilitating. But it's also the money. So the how you create theft insurance, how you create more like parametric kind of things for if the really old washing machine breaks down. Well, first you will not give a new washing machine, but how can you provide the service or the assistance in order for that thing to be fixed? And the dynamic of the family to move on and carry on, even in the health sector. So there's a lot of innovation going that way in particular. So health insurance in Mexico, private health insurance, is really cheap compared to the US. Like for my own health policy, which is quite expensive for my age and group, and it's like really premium thing. I pay 3,000, no, I pay $2,000 a year. So quite cheap when compared to the US.
yeah.
But $2,000 a year for the average Mexican family that has 4 members, well, a little bit unattainable, cannot be paid. So what they're doing is that they are creating more like a parametric. If you get this type of disease, you get this lump sum. That's it, and you don't need to go through get the reimbursement, get the invoices, and all the paperwork. Then you pay for it, then you send the insurance company. 3 months after, they will send you the money. That cannot be done in this. Now you just need to show a study from one of the doctors in the network that, hey, yeah, you have cancer, you have diabetes, you have XYZ, then you get a lump sum. And perhaps it doesn't cover for the best hospitals in Mexico, but it covers for the level of attention that people are accustomed to, which is a combination between some smaller private things for like medicines and that kind of things, and the bigger things, waiting periods for the public health. So it gives them money to, take the taxis, take the buses, perhaps leave their work for a couple of months and concentrate in getting the treatment they need for the ailment they have, for the illness they have, and that changes the dynamic of the family. They don't need to borrow money. They don't need to make activities to raise funds for treating the illness, and that really helps people out. But yeah, it's not the full coverage, but it's what can be paid and what can be made easier to understand for the person, which is really important.
Okay. When did insurtech really start taking off in Mexico and Latin America?
Okay, so that's a little bit of a tough question. The first samples of insurtechs we have in the country started 2015, quite early for the market. The main wave of insurtechs began in 2019. So this way of thinking, where insurtechs are not really replacing agents, they are not really replacing carriers, they're not really replacing anyone else, but they're like doing their own thing and collaborating to get to the blue ocean of a market that we have here. That began with the pandemic in the 20s.
Okay. What we're recording in late 2024. What are you expecting going into 2025?
Okay, so we're working really hard in the Pan American Alliance in order to ensure mobility of the insurtechs. So any kind of insurtech that provide a good service as an enabler for the traditional players, or that specialize on a particular niche and has solved that particular niche problem proper, then they can grow within our Latin American sphere. So, for example, Journey Sports. And once we get to 500,000 people, we expect to be expanding to somewhere in Latin America, perhaps Colombia, perhaps Brazil, perhaps Chile. It really depends on a lot of conditions. And earlier, we will be expanding to Guatemala, Costa Rica for learning how to expand internationally. But the associations are making this soft landing process quite simple for the companies. And we are working to make this process as simple as possible. For investors really need to understand that they're not investing in a small market in Mexico, in Colombia. They're investing in the whole region, and companies can grow from one country to another. Connection between regulators, between carriers, between services is quite strong. And we will be working on that in 2025 in order to make it stronger. Next year, we want to sign an agreement with Brazil in order to include them as well in our sphere of influence, and make easier for Brazilian companies to come to Mexico, Mexican companies to go to Brazil. There's a little bit more of a language barrier there, but with proper services and adequations, that can be made easier for everyone. And we expect to enable new kinds of products, with the Inter-American Development Bank, with the United Nations, with World Bank, with other real multilateral actors, perhaps also reinsurers, to start pushing new products into the market with a new way of thinking. So let's get micro, let's do embedded, let's do APIs, open insurance, that kind of thing. Start pushing that to new product lines within the markets to see what works, what doesn't. And then once something works, well, of course, push that for internationalization. So, yeah, that's a word in English, to make it international.
Yeah,
good.
Internalization, that works.
Yeah, great. So I think that's what's coming for the region. And we really need to work together. We need to make our regulators talk amongst each other to establish a common open insurance for a common standard for APIs within the Latin sphere. And I think that will make integration and getting from one place to another quite more simple, because once everyone has the same API nomenclature, the same API naming convention, then it's easier to go from one place to another to connect to different carriers. And we expect also to change the way the insurtechs are being financed in Mexico. Of course, the whole region in Latin America as well. Of course, we invite like traditional venture capital investors to look at the region, but we are also pushing the big brokers, the big carriers, the big reinsurers that operate within the region to start investing in the companies in order to get more of the like traditional smart money kind of thing that really understand the region, that really understand how to make business within this market, traditional way of thinking, but also, putting in contact with a newer way of thinking of the entrepreneurs, of the insurtechs, of everyone that's in this sphere. So yeah, I think those are the three main things that we will be working on as association, of course. Now, Journey Sports, well, I'll be working on new product lines and I'll be thinking of making some things international for sure.
Okay. So for U.S. Carriers, venture capital firms, or others looking for exposure into Latin American market, what's the best way to start learning about the opportunities in Latin America? What should they be reading? What should they be listening to?
Well, we do have a lot of events in the InsurTech Mexico, and every single association has its own events. And we sponsor 2 or 3 pitch days a year where investors from anywhere can listen to a wide array of different companies from the InsurTech Latin American sphere to, listen what they're doing, what they're creating. The Mexican InsurTech Association will be launching our own study branch, and we will be publishing one study every 4 months, starting from January, well, from April, because we need to create the first study. And we will be doing this in English as well as in Spanish, naturally, and Portuguese for the integration. So this will be a whole area effort. So happy to distribute. If you want, we can provide my email for the association or the website of the association to get in touch. And I'm happy to have one-on-ones with any investor that's interested in the region. And let's not forget that even though if they're investing in a Mexican company, what works for Mexico normally tends to work for the Latin American community in the US, which is quite broad. Just go to Miami and, you can speak Spanish all the way. And there's a lot of Hispanics in the US. A lot of companies actually have, instead of going down south from Mexico, are exploring the possibility of taking their solutions and their way of operating to the US market for the Latino community, which is quite a good thing because it's a huge community. So there's a lot of opportunity in that aspect as well. And really what works in Mexico tends to work it's the same culture.
Okay, and that's a giant community here in the US. For sure that historically we have not been great at serving with insurance products.
Yeah. And happy as an association and freely to talk about anything related to the Latino community, to Latin America, to doing business with this type of micro embedded, to any carrier, investor, reinsurer, venture capital, whatever. I'm really trying to showcase what we are doing. We saw last time we saw was an ITC in Vegas, And now we have this huge Latin American island in the event. We're really pushing to showcase the capabilities of the market and the opportunities of doing business in a blue ocean, which is quite great.
Yeah, it has to be exciting for insurance companies. Where here in the US, uh, most people have insurance, so there's really not that much organic growth. It has to be exciting, the possibility of reaching this massive market, twice the size of the US in number of people. It just has to be done in a creative way to fit the
Yeah.
realities of that market.
Yeah, and really empathic way. You really need to listen to your consumers and understand what's the value proposition you are looking for, you're working towards, you are in the services you're enabling for them to use to do claims, to ask questions. How do you make it accessible for them? And that's not a simple or obvious solution. I'll give you an example from my own company. So we were experiencing from our B2C model a lot of probable fraud on the first month of acquiring the policy. They acquired their through our website, they acquired their Taekwondo policy or whatever. And then on the first month, they made the claim for surgery or something. And uh, getting to know the numbers, it was obvious that we had triples in the claims rate on the first month than any other month, and it was like really obvious that it was a little bit staged. So what we did is that we created a small, like we call it, proof of good health. They need to make 5 sit-ups, 5 push-ups, and 5 star jumps on the video, and we train an computer vision algorithm to see if it was like normal or not normal, and it just flags us like this setup looks kind of weird, and we just watch it, and you can see, if they got their knee busted, well, obviously they cannot do sit-ups, and that really changed the fraud from the first month of our product. And the carrier was like, what, how do you fix it? It's like, well, we just asked for a video of 5 sit-ups that fix the whole thing. So it's not obvious until it is. And every single different product line has this kind of like little uh, funny stories of how you solve a particular problem that, I don't know if any carrier in the US asks for videos of people doing sit-ups, but
I've never seen it here, though.
it works. And
Very
for
creative
athletes, it's
solution.
quite obvious. It's quite obvious. They just like, of course, you want to see I'm okay. I'll give you 5 sit-ups, and that's it. Like there's not even question asked, and quite easy to train the algorithm, quite easy to host the videos. And now we have a lot of data of people doing sit-ups, and perhaps that can be useful, you know, in the future. Perhaps, I don't know. Like, let's see.
Okay, so basically, it just takes, yeah, a different type of creativity when it comes to problem solving. I think one of the big lesson is it's not always throwing money at the problem.
Yeah.
It's more, like you said, really understanding the customer and where they're coming from.
I'll give you another example from the vehicle insurance sector. So we have this company called Mi Compa, which translates to like my bro
My bro, yeah.
in my bro. So it will be like a Mi Compa, my bro. And these guys are selling micro insurance for, just like public liability insurance for really, really old and cheap cars, like $1,000, $2,000 cars, that kind of thing, and really cheap motorcycles, and they charge like $7 a month for the coverage. And yeah, so they have sold like 30,000 policies up to this point in 2 years. So everybody say that nobody in that product class, wanted to buy the insurance, but well, now they have 30,000 customers. And the way they sell is quite amusing because they have this artificial intelligence chatbot that it acts as a as a model, these kind of calendars that mechanics have in their walls of really like voluptuous women, that kind of thing. So it acts like that kind of woman that really has a stereotypical way of writing, speaking, answering in the Mexican understanding. And it was programmed, the artificial intelligence, to write with, um, errores ortográficos. That's uh,
To misspellings
with
yes
misspellings. Yeah,
with misspells.
it
Uh,
it was programmed to misspell words because people like write like that, and they want to empathize with the people that are selling them the product.
uh-huh.
So they changed the whole communication, the whole way of dealing with the customer. It's not like, oh yeah, in order to make a claim, you need to pay a deductible of that. No, the language is really watered down in order for people to understand. And the way of talking to them is the way they like being talked to. And that particular really creative change of way of selling the product has net them 3,000 new customers. It's not that people do not want the coverage. It's that, if you go with a full suit and try to talk to them as if they were in a, I don't know, like Forbes company, or yeah, no, that's not the way it works. You need to be
Okay,
creative and fun.
so in that case, they figured out that not only the price had to be right for the coverage, but also you have to talk to them in the real language they talk every day, even if that's not
So,
the correct formal Spanish.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's really understanding your customer that that's what they speak every day. It's not the more formal Spanish that they learn in school.
exactly. If they even went to school, that's not. Let's see if that happened. Most of these people are youth laborers and everything. So you need to understand it because getting these people insurance and coverage and really change their lives. The third major cause for impoverishment of Mexican families are uh, what's the name of this? Are mobility related accidents. So they crash the car, they get atropellado, they get
Run over.
run over by, yeah, they get run over by a car, these kind of things. And the fact that nobody has insurance on this will really prevents people from living poverty. If they need to rebuild every time something wrong happens to our lives, well, you tend to stay in the lane you are. But if you don't get destroyed by every single occurrence, every single um, not fortunate thing that happens to you, well, you will be able to build and eventually improve your life. So it's really about inclusion. It's really about democratization. It's really about helping people with the real problems, not just about making money. And there's a lot of money to be made for sure, but you really need to understand the market. There's also a lot of money to be lost because since a lot of these risks are not well known, well, you need to uncover them. You need to make, hypotheses of how they work, on what are the numbers. There's a lot of asymmetric information on these products, and you need time, you need understanding, you need to be really technical on what to do. So it's not only like fun and jiggles and, just having fun in creative ways, but it's also being serious about how you govern the claims and how you make um, a profitable product by year three, because nobody wants to carry on losses for 10 years in this market. Like, companies do have money, but they do not have infinite money.
I mean, insurance a product that's profitable by year three. That's good. that,
Yeah.
that is very good. The asymmetric information. What do you mean by that? Is uh, with populations like this that are not the traditional population that we're used to insuring, basically like chances are they understand their lives better than we do. We really
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to get to know them better.
They
To
understand the risk better than we do.
so
They really understand the risk better.
how do you how do you deal with that? How do you make a profitable product when you're playing with really low premiums and you don't understand the risk as well as the insured does?
Well, the first thing you really need to understand from the market is that not everything is it's dollars, or the premium. You need to play with every single lever that you have to govern the product. You have, of course, premium, deductible, copay, for sure. Those are the traditional ways. But you also have conditions. You also have the collectivity you want to attend, how you choose the level of risk. And in order for you to understand this, you need to endure some losses. So you need to get a. I'll um, I'll talk about the way we did it in Journey Sports and the way we are planning to do it for the new product lines that we're launching. Our first product was an accident insurance with a $2,500 sum, insured sum, that cover sport accidents. And we only had one classification of risk for every sport. We have like 25 sports. They all were $20 a year, $25 a year, and they all, pay $2,500. So first, we got to understand that. Look, these 25 sports, what are the claims rate and the frequency and severity for soccer against, I don't know, boxing? From there on, we started differentiating the different levels of risk on sports. Now we have 6 different levels of risk. You can be low risk, that's kind of like yoga, running, swimming. Medium risk, that's like baseball, volleyball. Then you got medium high risk, that's soccer, that's climbing. Then you have high risk, that's combat sport. Luego very high risk, that's like cycling and football, that kind of things. And then you have extreme risk, like motorcycle racing. And we started differentiating premiums on the level of risk, but also with an understanding of, you know, who plays these sports and how much they can pay. Of course, somebody that races motorcycles has a lot of money normally, or races cars, has a lot of money. You can get them to a higher tier of risk and they can pay more. But somebody that plays soccer, normally they do not have the funds. So you need to stomach lower compound risk for them that you do for motorcycle risk or for sailing or for, I don't know, equestrian sports, that kind of things. So you need to play with the social factors and the risk factors that are inherent to the sport they're practicing. First step. Second step, you need to introduce deductibles and co-pay for the level of risk, because if you do not make this, and that was one mistake that we did, people go to the hospital for the most absurd things. We had people going to the hospital because they lost a nail while playing soccer. It's like, what will they do in the hospital? There's nothing to be done about your lost nail. Just like, be a man and that's it, or be a woman. That doesn't really matter, But and that really, like the lower tier of claims, really impacted the claims ratio for our product. So we introduce a deductible, then we introduce a copay, because there are some kind of injuries that can be treated in a conservative way, that's like physiotherapy, and that need to be treated in a invasive way, surgery. But there's like plan A, plan B. If people do not participate or partake in the risk, they will always go for surgery, even if that goes against their own recovery ratio because it's the most expensive option, and you will always take the most expensive option. And that's a little bit of like human psychology that we need to learn. And once you introduce the copay, and it's just small, like 5%, 10% copay, then they normally tend to go for the conservative, which tends to be better for the athlete. If conservative doesn't work, you always have the surgery. And we do not charge copay on the conservative. We only charge copay on surgery. Okay, so that's like a newer development on how you make athletes share the responsibility. Because if they not share responsibility, they just get crazy. They just start playing harder, and that of course impacts not only the the numbers of the insurance per se, but also the efficiency of their teams. You know, if a athlete tends to get injured all the time, that's not good for the team. That's not good for the government that's sponsoring the athlete. That's not good for anybody. But you need to make them also responsible in that way. Now, then we started working on the conditions of treatment. Like, of course, we will treat you, we will insure your boxing match for 1 day, but we will reduce the sum insured, and we want to see the certification of your referees. We want to see the certification of your doctors. We want to see that you pay for the proper type of ambulance to be present at the event, because insurance is a last resort. It's not the first resort. I mean, we just move money around. Let's not get crazy about it. You know, we're a financial business. So if there's no doctor on site, you know, we cannot just throw money to the problem. That, you know, if we throw $10,000 to the guy that's, you know, just like injured on the ring, it will not help him recover. We need somebody that's there, that understands, that can stop the match. We need referees that are able to say, like, no, this was enough. There's not more need for punishment. He already won. That's it. We need to have those certainties before getting the insured. So those just like prevention kind of things. And that changed completely the equation. When we started with boxing matches, from out of 100 boxers, so 50 matches, we have 3 incidents. So every 50 matches, we have 3 people that needed care. Now, from every 50 matches, for every 100 matches, we have 1 people that needs care, just by governing the standard of care that athletes deserve. And, you know, organizations are really willing to provide a good standard of care to their athletes. It's not good business for them to get, you know, people dead on their rings, and people die all the time. You know, it's an absurd thing, but they do die, and it's a really sad thing. But yeah, so then it's the conditions, you know, the preventive kind of thing, and there are the conditions, the reactive kind of things. So it's like, okay, yes, we will cover this organization, but if you do not introduce better protective gear for the athlete or that kind of thing, and you not correct the sinistrality, we will introduce you a copay. We will introduce you deductibles. So that kind of bargaining with the organization allows us to reactively improve the claims from the organization itself. So yeah, that's like the whole kind of like, and of course you need to make your own network. So we created our own like medical network, our own physiotherapy network, in order to, you know, bargain for better conditions for the athletes and better prices for the, you know, for the treatment of these kind of things. So you need to play with all those factors in order to make a micro sport insurance work, and then you need to send hundreds of thousands of them to make money. So it's a really technical challenge to think. Now that we're getting into horses, into equestrian insurance, equine insurance, Well, it's a little bit of the same thing. We need our own veterinary network. We need to ensure the conditions of the places that people are doing these sports. In horses apart, we also need to ensure KYC because of a lot of, like the narcos, they have horses and they cannot be insured. That's a new challenge, and how you detect if this horse is from a law-abiding citizen or from a different entity. And, because the reinsurer back in London, they want to be certain, that they are not financing terrorism. And yeah, that's a really interesting challenge that you need to work around. And, when I talk with people that do horse insurance in the US or in Spain, they do not have this problem. It's absurd. They do not have this problem. And that really needs to be solved in Mexico because before the product can be mainstream. So, yep. And there's a lot of challenges. And we're willing to work with carriers, reinsurers from London, from Spain, from the US that are willing to do business in Mexico, but also with carriers that we need the local paper to do business here. So we need to also create all this ecosystem. And I mean that was a lot of work there, but yeah, those are some of the challenges of making a microinsurance viable in the country.
Awesome. We're out of time today, but thank you so much for your time. For the listener, I will link Oscar's LinkedIn and I will also link the old episode where we chat about journey spurts. That was in Spanish, but it is subtitled. It really is a fascinating story. So go watch that. Um, Oscar, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to see you at the next conference.
Yeah, Tony, hope to see you again. Hopefully before ITC Vegas somewhere, but if not, in Vegas.